Walk that walk, talk that talk, walk that walk, talk that talk, walk that walk, talk that talk.
This is Walk the Talk with Michele Fiore and Brian Wilson, a conversation about what's really going on in politics in Nevada. Now here's your hosts, Michele Fiore and Brian Wilson.
Good morning and welcome to Walk the Talk with me, your host, Brian Wilson. And not with us in studio today. Michele is out this weekend, got some business to take care of, but I've got a special guest joining me here in studio, Norm Ross.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So, Norm, you're running for District 8, right?
Yes, Assembly District 8, which is between the I-15, Durango, Tropicana, down to Robindale.
Okay, so, I want to get into some of the things that are going on in your district and why you're doing this. But let's start right off with that. What got you into this race? Because, crazy year, lots going on. What got you into running for Assembly here?
Probably a lot like the movie, fed up with it. I'm not going to take it anymore, that kind of a thing. Everything going on in the country. When I was growing up as a kid in Kentucky, things were a lot different. Back then, through hard work and perseverance, you could fulfill your dreams. At least we thought we did. Those were days that citizens revered the flag, obeyed the law, and saw the police as a friend. Today, people who don't work are told they don't contribute enough, while those that don't, people who work are told they need to contribute more, while those that don't work get a free ride. So, then you take the fact that cops are called criminals while criminals are called victims.
Yeah, that is, I shouldn't be laughing at that.
I know, it's just the way it is.
It's the absurdity of it that you have to laugh.
Yeah, I sat down and I made a list of like 20 things that is just totally absurd.
So, why don't we get into that? But, let me real quick. I want to go to the phones for a minute just because I got a friend joining us here. Got Jorge Gonzalez joining us because we've got something going on tonight with Greenfest. Are you there?
Yes, Brian, thanks for having me on. Actually,
Good
it's
morning.
happening all day. It starts at 10 o'clock.
That's right. We've only got less than an hour to go. So tell us what's going on.
It's Greenfest. It's in honor of Earth Day, and it's put together by a Green Alliance. I've actually had them on my show, which is today at 5 o'clock, right there on K-Town, where we do a renewable energy show. And it's just been a lot of fun. Everyone in town is involved, from NV Energy to Bombard to their public services. And it's a really green festival, meaning it's solar powered. There's going to be no waste. And there's plenty of things to do out there. Of course, live entertainment, food and drink, over 120 exhibitors, displays. Just a lot of fun things to do out there. For anyone to come out, they're going to have it pet friendly. They're going to do adoptions. So it really is truly an Earth Day, Brian.
Well, cool. So it's going on at downtown Summerlin. Starts at 10 a.m., goes right through till 5. Let's see, what do you got? GreenAllianceNV.org is where people can go for information. Is that right? I got the right place?
Absolutely. They go to greenfestlv.com.
Ah, okay. I had the wrong site. My fault. greenfestlv.com. So come on down, check it out, bring the family. You got a bunch of events going, and hey, if you got an electric car, go show it off. Especially if you've got spinners.
And any of the new electric cars that are coming up, it's not 100 miles anymore. These cars can actually go to 400 to 500 now, 400 to 500 miles without having to charge up.
So
that era is here now. We keep hearing about it, but it's really happening. You should come down and check it out.
That's pretty amazing. It's how nice to plug in at your house when you just get home from work and forget about it till next week.
And you end up paying 7 cents a gallon for gas.
That's a deal. Cool. Well, anything else you wanted to let her go?
No, that was enough. It's just the whole family can be involved. There'll be plenty of things to do from 10 to 5.
Hey, great. Well, hey, thanks for calling. Thanks for letting us know about the event.
And if anyone wants to hear anything about renewable energy, I do my show there on the station at 5 p.m. on Saturday.
Hey, I catch it most of the time driving back from out in Sandy Valley.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Have a good day.
All right.
Okay, Norm. So, Norm, where were we here when we lost you there?
Oh, well, we were talking about all the reasons I decided to run.
Yeah, my fault on that. I'm
No,
sorry,
no
but
problem.
had to get a plug in for Greenfest and get that. It only goes on once a year, so.
These were all the things, they were bothering me. I reached a point in my life where I felt like I could afford to give up the time, the 4 months. It is a part-time job. It's not like California where they pay you $150,000 a year to go live in Sacramento.
No, I mean, this really is a citizen legislature in Nevada. You know, that's one thing that I do still love about our process here that a lot of states don't have anymore.
And I hope it stays that way.
It's very important. I mean, we need elected officials that come home and actually spend time living a normal life to go up there and make good decisions.
And making a living other than off the taxpayer.
Exactly. You know, it's, sometimes the problem I think we end up having is we get too much special interest funding for that to happen. And it's nice to see when regular people that, go up and put their time in to do it that aren't being backed by some big special lobbies that are pushing an agenda.
True. And we also might want to look at, I don't know how you do it, but there are people being elected from special interest groups whose only interest is going up there and protecting that group.
Yes, we see that so much over and over again with the, God, I hate to, this is going to be the second time I think in a month I've had to say this, and it really disgusts me to say it, that it's the one thing I can, and only thing I can agree with Bernie Sanders on, is there's just way too much corporate money and special interest influence money in politics.
It's not just corporate money, it's union money.
Yeah, well...
I mean, I love teachers, for example.
Yes.
But too many of them are in the legislature working to make sure that they take care of the teachers' union and to take care of themselves. They're not there to make sure they take care of the kids.
No. I mean, look at the steamroll that just went on. Biggest tax increase the state's ever seen, all for education funding. And we're not even a year after that passed, and Clark County's already screaming and crying that we don't have any money.
Which we know. If you study the issue over the years, you know money is not the answer to our problems that we have in the schools.
No, it's been if money worked, how are we 25th or 26th in spending in the country, but dead last in results?
It's never
not
worked.
Money.
It's never worked. And one of the things that I've always asked myself or questioned is they continue to ask for smaller class sizes. It might be necessary down in the lower grades, I'm not sure. But I go back to when I was in school. Where I went to elementary school in Kentucky, we had 8 rooms, first grade, second grade, through the 8th grade.
So you had multiple grades in one room?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you had one grade per room.
One grade per room. But the important thing was, when I look back on it, we had like 50 kids in a room.
I think that when I went to school, and I'm little bit younger than you, we still had 40 plus 45 kids in a class. I don't remember it ever being a problem.
And it was that way in high school in Indianapolis, where I went to high school. We had 30 or 40 kids in a class. And the interesting thing is we learned. And the only difference I can think about then and today is maybe discipline. The kids were better behaved. The kids paid attention. They didn't cause trouble in school. And then when the teachers or the administration and the unions probably argue that the classes are too big, I sit and I think, okay, here's this guy who's 16, 17, 18 years old, junior, senior in high school, and they're saying, no, we can only have 22 in a classroom. And the year after he graduates and starts college, he winds up at 1,000.
Well, that's the insanity of the thing, is there's no preparation for the next stage in their life. You're being coddled and handheld through high school with, 30 kids in a class and somebody standing over you every second, and you're going to go into school the next day on day one of college and ignored. If you don't show up, if you're not there, they're not even paying attention. It's on you. And now they're making this argument that we should take and fund all college education on the taxpayer's dime and dump these kids that have not been prepared for it into another 4 years of wasted education because we didn't prepare them for it, and the reality of how they're going to have to learn and be responsible for themselves.
Exactly. The key word in everything you said was coddled. These kids are coddled by their parents, by the school district, by everyone, to the point they get to be 18 years old. First of all, they're told, and I went off on this 30 years ago. What do parents do? Don't. That's all they ever say to their kids. Don't do this, don't do that, don't get on the furniture, don't do. And then they get to be 18 years old, and they wonder how come the kids can't do anything.
Well, a real good friend of mine, right? For a real good friend of mine, she's got a daughter that's 21 now, and her funny saying that I hear all the time is 21 is the new 10.
That's probably right. 21 is a new 10.
I mean, what does that say about what we're doing as a society, as parents, when we have to treat our 21-year-old kids like 10-year-olds to get anything across?
It means we're in trouble.
I mean, something is
big
seriously lacking when that's the case.
The other thing is on the education side is just so people understand, I'm not anti-education. I am totally pro-teacher. But I think in order to be an effective and successful teacher, you have to want to teach. If you're going into teaching for money, you're making a mistake. It's not there. It's not bad, but it's not great. If you want to make a lot of money, go be a salesperson. They make a lot of money. But if you're going to be a teacher, and by the way, I was a high school coach and a junior college coach for several years. So I dealt with these kids. And coaching is teaching. And there are good teachers and there are bad teachers. I can recall some of the students saying to me, they were talking about an algebra class. I'll never forget this. And he had a question, and I said, well, what's your teacher say? And he said, well, the teacher doesn't do anything. I said, what do you mean? I said, what if you have a problem with, he said, the teacher comes in every morning and says, okay, turn to page 21 and do chapter 10. And I said, and what if you don't understand what they're talking about in the book? And he said, and you go ask the teacher. He said, oh, he'll just tell you to go look up the answer in the back of the book. I said, he can't even show you how to work the problem, an algebra problem? And he goes, no.
I think back to even my school days that held true all the way. That's not just a current problem. I remember so much going through the different teachers. The classes I always did best with were the ones where I'd come in. It's almost exactly what you're describing, but for my case, it worked better. I said, I don't learn real well from listening or lectures or talking. I need to hand me the material and let me go digest it my way, my pace, and how I want to digest it, and that's how I learn things. My best teachers in school were always the ones that gave everybody that difference of learn. I don't care how you learn it, just make sure by Friday you know it. And if you need my help to tutor you, or you want to learn it on your own, or however it was, and I just remember that my best teachers were the ones that I walk in on Monday morning. They say, this is what we're doing this week. And if I didn't come back till Friday and I spent my time in a study hall, all they cared about is, could I get the results on Friday? But if I needed somebody to go ask a question, they were there for me to show me that and explain it to me. And
I'm not sure I would have had the discipline you had.
It was just it was a good trade for me because it's, they let me do what I wanted to do in exchange for, I mean, I had to pay a price. I was required to keep a certain GPA to have that freedom, but I got to go wherever I wanted and do whatever I wanted, and no one really cared as long as I kept my grades where they were supposed to be. But that's how I learned.
Right, and you had a hunger for learning.
Yeah.
Right.
But like you're saying, what comes down to the teachers got to want to teach. I think this is why the money will never change how well education works.
No, it won't.
No matter how much you pay a teacher, they're never going to want to be there to take care of your spoiled brat. And I think that has a lot to do with wanting to teach, is how well the parents are doing at actually putting discipline into their children, raising them with some responsibility. The horror stories you hear of these kids being absolute terrors in classrooms and just ignoring every single thing about it. My gosh, can you remember in our day going to school, pulling out a cell phone and being there texting while you're in class? And
they'd kick you out of class.
Oh, gosh. Kick you out of class. They would have knocked me upside the head with a yardstick.
Exactly. They probably would have. And we need to go back to that, though. We cannot continue to let these kids be unruly in the classroom. It only takes one to mess up the whole class for the other 20.
Yeah, that's it. It's, that one bad apple it's not just that one kid who's getting messed up. It's everybody around them that's being affected by it. And
the other thing is that I see that we're having a problem here, with this, the grade point averages aren't high enough. We're not ranking high enough nationally, et cetera, is we're asking teachers here to try and teach someone who doesn't even understand the language.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
My wife spent most of her life in France. She wasn't born there, but when she got there to the university, even though she's acceptable to the university, they would not allow her to attend any classes at the university until she took one complete year of French, even though she spoke French when she got there.
So they wanted to make sure she was fluent enough to not slow down the class and the learning process.
Exactly.
Makes complete sense.
And they just said, okay, you got to go to French class for a year. You have to make a certain grade, and if you do okay on that, then we'll let you start taking your other classes. And that's what she had to do. So it took her 5 years instead of 4. But that's the penalty she paid, or the price she was willing to pay to go to the Sorbonne in Paris.
But is it really? Yeah, is it like you're saying? Is it really a penalty? Because I mean,
No.
yeah, it took an extra year, but what did she gain out of it? Complete fluency in another language, a top education from
a top education from a top French university.
That's hardly a price to pay. If anything, she came out better for it. So
the Canadians have a different philosophy than we do. We have English as a second language and stuff. The Canadians believe in the immersion, where you have to learn the language, and that's what they do in Canada before that you can take regular classes.
Maybe there's something to be said about shifting that focus instead of, and this is where Common Core, I think, comes in and hurts us, is they have these federal standards that they have to keep people on this exact path and this exact time frame. That doesn't allow for you to bring a student in and spend a year teaching them the language.
It also doesn't allow for any thinking and creativity.
Yeah, it's just a horrible burden that's ineffective, and it's been proven that it doesn't work, and they keep pushing it.
It's expensive, exactly.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just, it's another way of controlling people. It's the federal government's way of, trying to control everything about our lives, and that's probably one of the biggest dangers we have. On the state level, as far as my issues, my number one issue is actually the asset forfeiture laws.
Oh, gosh, they are so horrible.
I know the legislature dealt with it the last time, but they didn't go far enough in my mind. They have to eliminate those laws.
Yeah, we can't have it. It's just absolute insanity that somebody driving an RV from here to Reno gets pulled over and spends the next 2 years trying to get their money back.
Or it could be worse than that. Even somebody thinks the neighbors are selling dope. So they call the cops, and they believe the story. And this could happen. Your neighbor could say, hey, they have a drug operation going across the street. Call the police. The police believe the story, raid your house. With no reason to do it, they could actually take your house under the asset forfeiture law.
How come they won't do that to my neighbor up the street who's selling drugs? It doesn't matter how many times I call. All I get, we can't do anything unless we catch him on the street. Okay. So what, you're going to have to wait until this guy decides to come rob, or one of his customers decides to rob my house before you're going to do anything, and I happen to catch him or something? Well, I don't get it. But
I don't
I divest. A total tangent. But you're right. The civil forfeiture, it's funny. During the session when I was up there, and they were working on that, the testimony coming out of the departments, out of the police departments, is they're there testifying, going, you can't get rid of this because it accounts for this much money in our budget, and we need this budget.
I was going to say, it's
they're
money.
actually testifying under oath that it's a profit business for them to steal property from people that are never going to be charged with a crime, are never going to be convicted.
That's why that's my number one priority. I promise when I get up there, I'm going to make sure to work on that issue.
I would volunteer my time to come help you work on that issue, because that is a big one for me too. It's an absolute disgust.
I look forward to doing it with you.
And it's there's nothing I like more than going a few rounds with the LCD until we get that language right. So, excuse me. So we got a couple minutes more before we go to break, and we were talking before the show a little bit today. And what about the issues going on with, like, the sanctuary cities? And I know I know Las Vegas isn't necessarily a sanctuary city, but we've kind of become one, to where we, have groups standing on the sides of the roads here that, looking for work every morning at 5 a.m. that are.
It's probably mostly a federal issue. However, if it's possible for the state to enact legislation to prevent that, I'd be all in favor of it. I don't think there should be sanctuary cities in this country. But then I support build a wall. You know, illegal immigrants, illegal
I think
aliens.
I think that should be changed. Instead of build a wall, build a pretty gate. Just better marketing.
I like that.
Let's build a pretty gate.
Well, I've always said it won't be ugly very long because there'll be graffiti on it within 6 months. Both sides of it, probably. But no, we need to control our borders. Not only south, but north now, because now the so-called refugees from Europe are coming into Canada with an open border to come south into the U.S. I know we have gates there, and they're not gates, but guards there. But believe me, that northern border could become a problem.
You know, and I think that the biggest thing is, you know, America as a whole, you know, we're the most generous country on earth, and we don't want to sit there and see other people suffer. You know, and I'll concede the vast majority of people coming across our border illegally, they're doing it because they're trying to better their life for their family. But the fact that they have a good reason for wanting to come here doesn't change the reality that we simply can't afford to support everyone on the entire planet that wants to come into America. It just can't be done.
We cannot. No, we cannot.
You know, and it's...
I think Mexico, and I don't mind saying Mexico because I love the place. I actually have a second home in Cabo and go as often as I can.
I'm going to have to become much better friends with you.
But I also know that those people only make $5 a day.
Yes, you know, a very long time, very close friend of mine lives there. You know, he got married a Mexican, a dual citizen, and she wanted to go home to be closer to her kids, and he's been there for about 10 years or so. And I don't have the experience in Mexico outside of Tijuana. That's the extent of my Mexico history. So
if you want to experience Tijuana, just go to East LA.
Well, there wasn't much of a difference between the two, to tell you the truth.
Well, my wife said that the first time I took her to Tijuana when we lived in San Diego. She said, this looks just like East LA.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. You know, you go one block off the main drag strip and you don't know if you're going to end up in a body bag or not.
Exactly.
So very much East LA.
But anyway, the primary problem and what causes people to want to leave there is no middle class in Mexico. You're either filthy rich or you're poor. And I think the filthy rich who control that country want to keep it that way because they want the cheap labor. It's no accident that Carlos Slim is the most wealthiest man in the world. He owns Telemex. There is no competition.
Well, and let's face it, he really, really loves illegal immigration because they come here to America, they earn money here that they send back home to their families in Mexico who are struggling. And where does that money get spent? Straight into the pockets of the yep, that's exactly where it goes.
No, it is. I shouldn't laugh because it's a serious issue.
It is.
But it's so serious that it becomes not funny, but I don't know how you... It's not funny, ha.
No, but I mean, you know, there's so much talk in this election cycle about all the jobs that are getting exported out of this country and all the wealth that is going to China. But the amount of wealth that gets transferred to Mexico just via people coming here illegally, working under the table, not paying into the tax system, and then shipping that money back across the border. That's money gone out of our economy.
There's, according to Donald Trump, there's about a $50 billion a year difference in the not the exchange rate.
In the trade
deficit.
But that's just the on the books money. That's
right.
Nothing by comparison. I mean, we've got towns in Texas that have a population of a couple thousand people that got 50,000 PO boxes. That's all just immigrants or people coming across the border to pick up their benefit check. So, it's kind of we've got to do something about it.
We absolutely
need to build a nice, big, pretty gate.
I like that. Big, nice gate.
Exactly. Where they know where to get in line, and we let people immigrate legally as our economy can absorb them.
And I'm sure that we do need them. But they should come legally, yes.
Exactly. And we'll take a break. We'll be back in a minute and do more with Norm Ross after the break.
Walk that walk, talk that talk, walk that walk,
Welcome back to Walk the Talk with me, Brian Wilson, and sitting in with me today, Norm Ross. For those who weren't here in the first half of the hour, Michelle is out this weekend taking care of some business, getting some work done. And, we're just talking about general, Norm's running here, Norm Ross here. He's running in Assembly District 8 this year. And we're just kind of going through some of the issues, why he's running for office, and some of the things challenges we're facing in Nevada in the session coming up here, and taking a look at all the different issues we've got in front of us. One thing we were talking about just here during the break, Norm, we started talking about this we were talking a lot about education in the first half and money, but we kind of started talking a little bit about college education and, this new movement that's going on to make college free. And I think what you said was you'd mentioned the example of somebody with a $200,000 college loan for a very functional degree.
Greek mythology.
and we, the taxpayers, should be on the hook for that. Apparently, to hear the Democrats pitch it, that was somehow a good idea for taxpayer dollars to be spent on a Greek mythology degree.
I don't understand where these college kids, other than the fact that maybe they were brainwashed by professors, I don't understand where they come from, where they think that college should be free or anything in life should be free. I'm all for education, but not everybody even needs a college degree. And then probably more than half of those who are getting them are like this person with this Greek mythology. And these kids, they go to school, they study art history, and then they wonder why they can't get a job.
Yeah, nothing like 4 years in liberal arts to try and then go end up at Burger King when you're all done.
Unless you want to teach art history, you better not major in art history.
That's so true, so true. And it's, there's a lot to be said about education. We need it, but that's not the only thing we need. It's not a guaranteed fix-all, guarantee walk into a job. You're more likely to get a better paying job with a good trade,
absolutely,
than you are with a college degree. And
that reminds me of a joke. Mm-hmm. It's where the plumber went to the doctor's house on a Saturday because he had a leak in his kitchen sink.
Okay.
And the plumber fixed it, and he said, that'll be $100. And he was there like 30 minutes. And the doctor said, my God, $100, that's more than I make. And the plumber said, I know. That's why I dropped out of med school.
So, Norm, you had a bunch of other things that kind of were like your driving thing we were talking about here that was kind of pushing you to the need to serve here. And one of the things I like that stood out is you're a real big proponent for a citizen legislature, strong term limits. What's your feeling on the term limit situation we have here in Nevada now? I mean, we both agree we need them federally. This permanent career of Harry Reid for decades, that kind of thing has got to end. How do you feel about the term limits we have in the state now?
I'm all for term limits, but, we actually have them.
So
every 2 years we vote, every 4 years we vote, every 6 years we vote. But I don't know how we can get people to pay attention to what their elected officials are doing so that they will vote them out of office. I mean, we could have voted Harry Reid out several times over the years, but we don't. And because we don't, and because the population or the voters don't pay enough attention, I've come to the conclusion that the only way we're going to keep these people from staying there for a lifetime is to have term limits, both on, as we do in the state, at the federal level. The other side of that, knowing and watching Congress for my whole life, practically, at least since I was 16 years old probably, is have you ever noticed in Congress over the years who all the committee chairmen were? Southerners.
Yeah, I've never really thought of it.
Why? Because they keep on voting the same old people back in office all the time, and Congress operates on a seniority system.
Yeah, it always is. The chairs are always whoever's been there the longest, not whether they're the most qualified or have the best ideas. It's just, serve your time and, wait your turn and you'll just get there automatically.
And all the senators and congressmen from the South, the Southerners figured that out and would always put the same people back. Robert Byrd was a good example. He was there his whole life. I I don't think the country was formed with the idea that that this would be a job. And my feeling is it shouldn't be a job. I've come to the point in this part of my life, and I'm towards the other end, not the beginning, that I almost wouldn't vote for a 30-year-old anymore because I think he just wants a job. And this shouldn't be a job. Now, in our state, we don't have to worry about it because as long as we can keep it a part-time position.
Yeah, that's the difference. That's what I was just going to say is aside from the term limits at the federal level, they spend, and you with experience in California even, there is another great example of they spend full time. That's what they do. If you're a federal elected official, that's your full-time job, and I think that's just too much. You get 10, 15 years removed from the last time you actually had to punch a clock. What you're voting for there does not reflect what the people you represent and what's in their best interest.
Believe it or not, when I first arrived in California in the Navy, they had a part-time legislature. I actually remember when it went from part-time, like it is here, to full-time. It didn't improve.
No, it definitely would have went downhill quickly.
You had more laws being passed, more restrictions on business, more of everything, because when you're there full-time, I think they feel like they have to justify.
It's maybe I'm getting a little cynical as I get older, but, I sit here and I look and I hear the talk about some people in Nevada, some of the elected officials are up there going, no, we need to start meeting every year instead of every 2 years, and we need to have longer than 4 months, and trying to turn it more into a fuller time position, not all the way full time. And I can't help but think to myself that when I look at them and I living it firsthand, spending an entire session there, all I can think to myself is the less time they're in session, the better this state is.
Absolutely.
The less damage they can do.
The other thing about the people who want it, to me, the officials who want it, the elected officials who want full-time, want it because they want more pay. I guarantee you, if you said, okay, we'll meet every year, but you don't get any pay for it, they probably change their mind or their attitude about it. But the worst part about going to full-time means a full-time bureaucracy. The state budget would go out of...
Oh, gosh. It just would spiral out of control fast. So, Norm, I don't know. We're going to jump on and grab a couple calls here real quick. We got few people that have been holding for a while, and I've just been kind of pushing it off because we're, so much to talk about. But let me grab a couple calls here real quick. Richard, you there with us?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Good morning.
Listen, Norman made a statement about keeping people in people's minds, like Harry Reid and stuff. And part of the problem why that doesn't happen is because of the quote-unquote dumbing down of America. I guarantee you the kids in high school today aren't learning what I learned in high school many, many years ago. I mean, they don't even teach poli-sci anymore in high school as far as I know. And I taught high school out here for a year before I got so sick of it. But if the kids are not educated properly and the public is not reminded properly by radio media, by print media, I'm pretty sorry to say that by the time I leave this planet and you and Norman leave this planet, George Orwell will have seen his vision, because everybody in this world is going to be too dumb to know what's going on around them.
I always sit here. I always hate to go back to Ayn Rand, but it's scary how much of that kind of like you said, George Orwell, Ayn Rand, and the stuff that's come true as we watch. I think I'd taken a look for it. So we're sitting here. I was taking a look at giving a consideration running for office, and I decided it wasn't this time to go for it. But I know looking at it, everything they're telling you is you've got to design a campaign around a 6th grade education. How disturbing is that?
These kids and young adults, say under 40 today, they don't even know what their rights are.
I don't even think they care.
They don't. They probably don't care, but they don't know what their rights are. They don't. And I don't understand the complete political process, but I understand enough to be active in it. Okay, and I have a really long memory. Okay, so they're just not learning.
I'm not sure that are they even still teaching U.S. history and U.S. government in school?
Well, they're teaching their version of it.
When you when you do on the street interview with these people, and they're UCLA grads.
Right.
They can't even tell you who the vice president is.
Right. So what you need to do is educate your kids using textbooks that are 50 or more years old. Now, I'll give you an example, and it's a true story. But when Clinton was president, and there was a big push with Jim Brady and Handgun Control Inc. Between the Clinton and Reagan era, the liberals persecuted a teacher in Texas for teaching the Second Amendment in high school. It was an American history class. She was teaching the Constitution, and the lids jumped on her for teaching about the Second Amendment and what that meant. And that can be looked up. That can be found. That is a true story.
Well, they're still doing that today. I've seen Common Core materials written and designed after 2010's Supreme Court Heller decision that specifically clarified without any doubt that the Second Amendment's an individual right. And we have Common Core material put out with federal approval and meeting Common Core standards that says the Second Amendment is nothing but the right for a state-armed militia.
Oh, this is what I'm getting at is the Orwellian thing. I'll give you an example. The current war that we're in the Middle East. If this keeps on going on, it won't be any different than in his book where people say, well, what do you mean? We've always been at war with these people because it will have been long forgotten that it's just commonplace. We've always been at war with the Indo-Chinese. Well, we've always been at war with ISIS. It'll just blend in and become commonplace, just like the movement with LBGT. Oh, everybody's the same. We can all be married. We can all have bathrooms. Blah, 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 dribble. And I don't know how old Norman is, but I'm old enough to be able to say with confidence that 75 years ago, when my uncle fought in World War II and the United States was a little more intolerant of certain things, we had a stronger, more intelligent, more patriotic country.
The patriotic part is very, very important, and people don't realize it. And I think it has the fact that it's been dummied down and actually practically taken out of school. When I was growing up like you, we said the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. Every morning we took the flag down at the end of the day. We put the flag up in the morning at the school ground, and we were taught that we had an obligation to service. There was an obligation, but it was people were honored. Like there's a member of my family, I don't know exactly how close it is, but his name is Wilburn K. Ross, and he has a Medal of Honor from World War II. And they had a huge parade in our hometown for that man when the war was over. They don't do that anymore. You don't have – Obama gave out a couple Medal of Honors to people that earned them years ago, but they didn't have a parade or anything. They just –
well, no, and sadly, that's not even as most recent as it gets. And Richard, thanks for the call. It was really very, very good call. But the patriotism, this Pledge Allegiance, this lack of respect and duty, and the honor to serve, dates back to the liberal attack going back to Vietnam, and that was kind of the start of the downfall of it. Almost,
exactly, and it's shortly after that was when Nixon ended the draft. Which is another issue. I'm not running for Congress, but if I were the king, I would reinstate the draft. Everybody 18 and over, male, female, would have to go into the service for 2 years, and they could delay their college to do it because it would create discipline. It would cure a lot of the gang problems in the inner city. I mean, everybody would have to do service. What would you do with all those people? Well, you put some of them on the border, protect the border. But first thing I'd do was get rid of TSA and replace them with those people.
That is a brilliant idea. I mean, there is so much going on, so many things of service that could be done just in the community. Even down to getting into the National Guard and wherever the service is. Maybe the service isn't necessarily at a federal level. Maybe it's a state level service or community level service. But you want to pay for education? Well, that already exists right now for our military. You go serve your time, and you get out and you get your GI Bill and the other grants that are available, and your education's paid for. And as an employer myself, I know when somebody comes into me and hands me an application with 4 years of military service on it or 2 years, that person's going to the top of the stack immediately.
Absolutely.
Because I know I can count on them to not only show up every day.
They'll show up.
Not only show up, but when they show up, they're going to have pride in the work that they do. And that matters. So, you want to have a better chance. You talk about it's hard to get a job, and it's hard to get a job even with a college education that you can't get out of college and go find good work. Go get some military background before you go to college, and you'll have your college paid for. You won't be graduating with debt. And I promise you, employers are going to pull your application and resume and stick it right to the top of the pile when they see that on there every time.
The great thing about military is it builds your competence. It gives you discipline and teaches you, if you haven't learned by then, that, hey, work is not bad. You can actually enjoy work. I do, or that's probably why I continue to work today. I don't have to, but I do.
Well, I think another really important lesson the military teaches is that it's not all about you. So much of our society and our youth running around today, it's instant gratification. What do I want now? What about me? Me. And that's something they break you of very quickly in the military, that it's not, the world does not revolve around you. You're not the sun. Get over it. It doesn't matter what mommy said to you. You don't get participation trophies in the military.
I know that very well.
I wish we had more of that. Let's grab Babar. I haven't got to talk to Babar in a while. Are you there, Babar? Oh, it looks like we lost you. Oh, go. I didn't lose you. Good.
Yeah, I'm really concerned with the legislature, and I want you to jot this down if you don't mind, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, NRS 375.100. It has to do with the recording office. In other words, in order to record anything, you must pay a tax. And if a tax is not paid on a recording document, it cannot be filed under law. Did you know that?
So you're talking about that chapter deals with real estate, right?
It deals with county recorders.
Okay, but recording real estate sales and transactions, is that
No,
it? Or just everything on the recorder?
It could be anything.
Is it documents?
Okay.
Yeah, like legal documents, like
a legal
divorce papers.
document. Because you cannot record anything unless there is a uniform code attached to any deed. Are you aware of that?
No, I got to be honest with you, I was not.
Well, I'll tell you, this is the dumbest thing I have ever seen the legislature come up with. However, there are uniform codes that can be used, but somehow it is kept a secret from we, the people, who pay the tax in order for the county recorders to get their paycheck. And by going into the county recorder's office, they will not discuss anything with you legally.
So,
have you ever been to the recorder's office?
Yes, I have.
Oh, really? And how do you record deed documents? Is it because you're an elected official? They just take care of it?
I'm not an elected official.
Well, you work with one.
I do, but I haven't had to record anything really there at the county recorder's office in a long time since I last bought a house, which was, gosh.
Well, most recordings
10 years ago?
Most real estate recordings are done by the title companies.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. But you, as an individual, have the right to use the recorder's office, do you not?
That's true, as long as you're willing to pay the fee.
That office open.
As long as you're willing to pay the fee.
The fee's got to get paid for somewhere. I am all, me, I'm the small government guy.
I'm not arguing with the payment of the fee. The problem is there are no universal codes that are offered to the public in order for them to put on a document in order to prolong the tax to be paid at a later date. Do you understand my standing? If you want to go in to make a recording, you don't have the money to pay the said tax. Well, there are ways to get around it, but this is not shared with the public.
Okay, so what you're let me see if I can summarize this so I get up to speed with you here, Babar. You want to make a recording, you don't have the money to make a recording. There's actually a process for that, but that process is hidden, and the county recorders and the clerks there since they can't give legal advice, won't even tell the public about what that process is.
Correct.
You know,
Because there are customary processes, but it's only for the eyes of the attorneys. And in order to see an attorney, you got to pull up $2,500. Are you aware of that?
Well,
Depends on the attorney.
Depends on the attorney, yeah.
Yeah, go find me an attorney that doesn't want less than $2,500 to handle any type of case.
Well,
go
I don't
find
know.
me one in town, and I'll give him a call, and I bet you wouldn't even use him or her or it.
Well, you know, Babar, as always, you've always got the most interesting things you could pull out of our statutes, which is what makes the call so fun. Is you run into some of these obscure things that people deal with every day, but nobody knows about, and how you find them, I don't know. But it's amazing to me that how much is buried in our statutes, and I don't know that I can get on board with this one as being a real big problem, because we got to pay for the recording somehow, and I don't necessarily want to be paying for everybody else to record their property license and their marriage license and everything else. So I'm okay with them charging a fee, but I think it uncovers the bigger issue that there's quite a bit that goes on in our government that they don't make easily available to the public. And it's kind of what we were talking to, Norm, that our youth aren't aware of what's going on. So their voting comes back and cycles back to just, hey, who's the celebrity name that I recognize?
It's the major problem in legislation is called unintended consequences.
So
there are a lot of laws passed that the side problems are worse than the law, and nobody thinks about those things before they have the laws passed. More than likely, we'd be better off if we didn't have any laws except the Ten Commandments or something very simple. All it does is create problems for people and cost.
Yeah, you could really cover just about everything necessary in the Ten Commandments as general policy.
It's pretty.
Don't hurt other people.
Yeah.
Don't steal from other people. Sadly, so much we have all these never-ending piles of regulation because people can't get down the simple rule of don't steal from other people, don't hurt other people,
and know the Constitution.
Yeah,
and don't forget we have First and Second Amendment rights.
So, well, we've only got about 2 minutes left, and I got to touch on this real quick. And before we wrap up, it's speaking of the Second Amendment here. We told you a couple months back about the Clark County Library District. In the last session, the Nevada legislature reclarified the standing on Second Amendment rights in Nevada, that only the legislature and nobody but the legislature can make firearms regulations in Nevada of any kind. Clark County Library District has refused to abide by that and has continued to kick people out of the library for legally carrying and safely carrying a firearm. They were warned about it at a public meeting back in November where citizens brought this to their attention, that the Nevada legislature has made this clear that any local agency that does this are opening them up to a triple damages lawsuit. They continues enforcing this policy. Now, sure enough, just yesterday, a lawsuit was filed against the library for taking a mother of three while she was there with her children getting books for their homeschool her children for schooling. And after being in the library an hour, the library had her arrested and trespassed out, and now us, the taxpayers, are going to be on the hook to pay that bill.
And their attitude is let the taxpayers pay.
Yep, and it just keeps going. But there's the music. We're out of time, and I'll touch more on the library next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Norm Ross, running for Assembly District
My pleasure.
8. I hope to hear much more from you. And everybody, Brian Wilson, signing off. Have a good weekend.
Walk that walk, oh, talk that talk, and walk that walk. Talk that talk.